Siona God, hello all, Osha Sahiya, good evening and Wado, thank you for watching. So this is day 67 of Transformation of America, the true life story of a CIA mind control slave by Kathy O'Brien with Mark Phillips. We are working our way through the victim of the system timeline, and hopefully we can get through the end of that. In order to heal from trauma-anchored repressed memory, the survivor must learn of their past from the inside out, not through outside input. As a recovered survivor, I reiterated this fact repeatedly to Tennessee Juvenile Court Judge Andy Shukoff, who imposed monitor censorship on Kelly's and my conversations, in parentheses, i.e. topics of our past, present efforts, future plans, and the words mind control, President Bush, etc. I knew what was in Kelly's best interest, and his ignorance was glaring and obnoxious. December 1995, after the publication and subsequent release of Trance, public outcry forced Judge Shukoff to lift his 5-year gag order forbidding Kelly outside communications and mail. He sarcastically said to Kelly, "Far be it for me to violate your constitutional rights." I mean, I already did, right? Good Lord. As he mimicked the public plea, during the same hearing, he also ordered Kelly to read Trance, to which she responded, "It's my constitutional right to choose what I read." Representatives in attendance from Jabneel, Jabneel, her newly assigned Knoxville Christian-based placement, then voiced their opposition to Judge Shukoff's obvious lack of concern for Kelly's mental state. And while they admittedly did not understand mind control, they did recognize a glaring cover-up and vowed to stand by Kelly at all costs. And the costs were insurmountable. July 1997, the doors of Jabneel were closed forever. Kelly reports that a team of federal officers flashing FBI identification shackled some of the children for transport to other facilities while confiscating all records. Due to the volatility of Kelly's case and circumstances, arrangements were immediately made to transfer her to relative safety. From this disorganized safe house, Kelly was thrust into a non-restrictive, unstructured lifestyle highly detrimental to her well-being, and pursuit of her confiscated health and school records began in earnest and to no avail thus far. Fall 1997, after years of conditioning through various institutional/warehouse placements, instructing Kelly to get along with her peers, including gang members, Satanists, the violently dangerous, and mentally disturbed. Kelly attended a public high school. Her dissociative mind was highly suggestible and vulnerable to the same kind of peers she had been forced to get along with the previous 8 years. Her diagnosed DID rendered her defenseless, without conscious discernment, void of self-awareness/self-esteem, awareness that she was/is subject to reactivation of program, and then in parentheses it has an S, so programs. And in dire need of understanding, Kelly began a downward spiral from which she has yet to recover. I was blocked by the state of Tennessee, who still had custody of Kelly, from having necessary contact with school officials and or guidance personnel. Their glaring lack of understanding of Kelly's condition and plight was compounded by the fact that all of her past medical, mental health, and school records were being withheld by the FBI, who had confiscated them. Kelly was unable to provide the school with pertinent information, of which she was still dissociative due to the lack of therapy, and was subsequently told she could not or would not graduate with her class unless her records were provided. We appealed to the Tennessee DHS, now retitled the TN Department of Children's Services, for relief, and said Kelly's so-called caseworker, Katie Finney, Finney, who had blatantly covered up the reality of her needs for years, was being replaced by a new caseworker, Fred Polacek, Polacek, which delayed resolution indefinitely. In the meantime, Kelly's Tennessee state medical insurance failed to cover any and all needs, including hospitalizations, medication, and or therapy. To compound this felony, Kelly was told that her Social Security benefits, which had been established for her in 1989 in Alaska, had lapsed through negligence of the state of Tennessee and would no longer be available to her when she turned 18. Go figure. Still in the custody of the state of Tennessee, Kelly was maintained in limbo, unable to recall her past or progress toward her future, and her immediate health needs rendered her weak and sluggish. Her once high grade point average had plummeted, where she once academically tested way beyond her grade level. She now was struggling to maintain sufficient focus on her schoolwork to complete it. On a brighter note, Christian patriot, singer, and songwriter Gad, G-A-D, Klang, K-L-A-N-G, wrote a song of encouragement for Kelly using our family motto as its title, "It's not over till we win." Included it on his latest release, and it began getting airplay nationwide. Kelly's routine boxes of cards, letters, and gifts from supporters swelled to overflowing, yet her predicament remained unchanged. Still, no medical relief, no qualified mental health therapy, no Social Security benefits, no school records, and her extensive case records were scattered among workers at the Tennessee Department of Children's Services despite my persistent efforts to stimulate attention and action. My efforts were extremely hampered by the legal reminder that Kelly was not in my custody. Kelly was ordered to take a menial job to pay for her basic necessities, which were not being supplied by the state. That's crazy. Unable to focus at work any more than she could at school, Kelly was not able to meet the routine work demands placed on her. September 20th, 1997, Kelly took flight from her dilemma, fled her Knoxville placement, and was found sleeping 200 miles away under a bridge in the homeless section of Riverfront Park in Nashville. She had no medication, change of clothes, or food. She was immediately transported to the D.D. Wallace, so D-E-E Wallace Shelter for Battered Women and Homeless Children. I was still legally forbidden custody. Make sense. Not one of Kelly's difficulties had been resolved by the state, and no relief was provided her beyond a roof over her head. She was sent back to a public school where again, ignorance of her severe mental disorder and lack of understanding was fueled by a lack of records. Kelly's and my communications dwindled due to imposed restrictions that permitted intermittent 10-minute phone calls and 2 hours a month visitation. February 1998, as Kelly neared her 18th birthday, Mark and I took the necessary steps and precautions to safely solidify arrangements for her transfer to high-tech, privately sponsored, classified rehabilitation. Certain records and finances were needed to complete the effort, which I expected would finally be legally obtained upon Kelly's leaving state of Tennessee custody. I learned that there would be a 3-month grace period for transition from custody, which equated to a gray area of legalities and red tape. February 19, 1998, Kelly turned 18. The steps planned for obtaining her qualified rehabilitation began to precariously detour when Kelly disappeared on the streets of Nashville, Tennessee for weeks at a time. Our efforts appeared undermined while Kelly reported traveling outside the state to such areas as Fort Campbell, Kentucky, a former mind control abuse base she and I both endured with proofs. During her absence, her state-imposed placement of Try-Angle House, in parentheses, Suzanne Boone, B-O-O-N-E, 3137 Long Boulevard, Nashville, Tennessee, 37203, claims to have divvied up her belongings, including personal clothing and her hope chest of sentimental letters and artifacts never to be seen again. Spring 1998, with no records provided or relief in sight through the state of Tennessee, Kelly was again told that she would not be able to graduate with her class, highly intelligent but nonetheless unable to focus. Kelly, now 18, dropped out of school and again took to the streets. Reaching out to help her was akin to squeezing a handful of sand, and the tears I shed were shared by Kelly, who couldn't help herself. Her voiced fears included that she couldn't keep with the program, in parentheses, what program, double exclamation point, and her friends she discussed were violent Satanists and drug dealers. Knowing that love is the most powerful healing force in the universe, I maintained communication with Kelly, while Mark again solidified arrangements offshore to have her technologically deprogrammed in hopes she could eventually be in control of her own mind. Kelly continuously disappeared at the most inopportune moments. Even Social Security was willing to proceed with an appeal on her case if only Kelly could show up for an appointment as legal procedures demand. Those armed with government insider intelligence poised and ready to help Kelly recover her mind became more and more wary of the apparent adverse influence on her mind while in the custody of the state of Tennessee. Lives were at risk. Lives of some individuals known to Mark were lost, and subsequently the secret mental health recovery team partially disbanded and moved her remaining operations to another country. Summer 1998, distraught with events, my own conflict with love and logic between Kelly and her programming reached overwhelming proportions. I planned/fantasized ways to whisk her away to safety while the CIA's orchestrated psychological warfare intensified on us all. The political volatility of our country could potentially increase with the international ramifications of human rights issues instigated by her plight and the proven facts contained within trance. I was told once again that our lives were in grave jeopardy, with no chance of survival for any of us if Kelly and I reunited due to her active programming. In parentheses, the high-tech manipulation of brainwaves that Kelly endured on various NASA and military installations during the early 1980s is as fresh today as when D, it literally has the letter D, lowercase d, as when D was installed. And technology has advanced light years since then with the utilization of computerization. This living nightmare couldn't overpower love, which fueled my determination to ensure Kelly's mental and physical freedom, whether it would be with or without me. Years of physical separation only strengthened the bond between us. Kelly and I share a profound depth of communication beyond the usual mother-daughter relationship. Knowing who and what we have experienced together, in addition to what we are currently up against. Kelly sometimes expresses a basic understanding with an appreciation for our relentless efforts. Her own insight into life seems highly evolved, and her innate spirit is strengthened with love. Yet she struggles with the reality of her trauma and highly technologically based U.S. government mind control programming that has been harmonically instilled to control her brain's function over her respiratory system. In parentheses, mine was digestive and circulatory, whereby she, like today's spies, would die before telling government secrets. When she and I are together, it naturally triggers memory of past experience, which often results in her suffering respiratory failure. This program must be diffused in order for Kelly to regain control over her own life by remembering her past and reclaiming control over her own mind. Psychologically, Kelly is at times aware and determined, yet this cannot overpower the harmonic manipulation of brainwave patterns formed in infancy prior to full development of her brain. Instead, she continues to suffer repeated hospitalizations. Man, what you need to know is that Kelly's plight extends beyond her to, and it says us all, but it says u.s.all. Current events, including high-frequency active auroral, AURORAL, research, project, and in parentheses says HARP, HAARP, and hype and media spin lend increasingly intensified demands that we, the people, wake up to reality, arm ourselves with knowledge, and legally and peacefully take back our country, our criminal justice system, and reinstate constitutional values of freedom and justice for all. Man, speaking in code and stuff, that's like really rough to read, but she has it like spelled out here, like bold and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, by understanding Kelly's plight, we will understand our own. By helping her, we will help ourselves. By gaining insight, we all positively evolve into the next millennium, a stronger, wiser, healthier, more spiritual, and loving mankind. With consideration to this timeline, Mark and I respectfully ask that you become responsible leaders and support our effort to resolve this case once and for all. Please help. And again, it says us, but it's u.s. Starting today by increasing awareness through broadcasting this timeline, writing your congressman, and referring to the details in our book, Transformation of America, for Kelly's sake, the sake of your loved ones, and the sake of humanity as we know it. And so the next few paragraphs is the silence equals death, and then I'll take the photos and post it of the people they contacted. The primary key to our survival is attributable to the vast and timely dissemination of corroborated detailed testimony. For 5 consecutive years, beginning in 1988, we personally presented testimony and supporting irrefutable evidences to all applicable county, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. This same testimony was hand-delivered by a sympathetic U.S. Congressman from Tennessee, Bob Clement, Clement, to all concerned Washington, D.C. government agencies and to certain members of the U.S. House of Representatives and Senate. We did not discriminate between good guys or bad guys. Everyone received the same voluminous packet. The responses we eventually received were bland from letters and or threats to our lives and liberty. The threats were verbally delivered by local officers of law enforcement agencies in Nashville, Tennessee. These threats we knew were hollow due to the large number of people we had notified who believed we could only be credible if we were murdered. This is a normal human response that we bet would protect our lives. It did, and we won the first round. Secondary to disseminating information for ensuing our survival was to determine once and for all if in fact our constitutional system of justice had actually collapsed. The bitter truth revealed through this 5-year exercise proved justice is no longer available when the National Security Act is invoked. The following list of the individuals and organizations represents a fraction of the total number we contacted with testimony, left no stone unturned, and we were stonewalled for reasons of national security. So I'll take those photos and post them tomorrow. Don't go hang again. Love you, minute.